What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast. Early look at the Week 2 lines, a YouTube exclusive. I'm Will Brinson. Joining me, John Breech. I was going to call you like my brother from another mother, but I don't think that's – we could be brothers. We look a little bit alike.
Brinson, I don't think there is any world where we would pass as brothers. I think I would pass with Wilson as brothers before I would pass with you.
Okay, fair enough. Seems insulting, but whatever. Anyway, full day of football in the books. You can watch us on youtube.com/pick6, or I guess you are watching us there. Obviously, make sure and go to the podcast feed on Apple Podcast or Stitcher or Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe to the podcast. If you like us, you'll love the podcast. We'll have our recap show up, breaking down every single game, coming up late on Sunday night, early Sunday morning, depending on where you listen, overseas or in America. But right now, we're going to break down some of the biggest spreads from around the NFL for Week 2. These lines are already out. People want to know what to do with them. And, of course, we start, John Breech. Where else would we start? In the AFC North, where I don't know if you saw this or not. You know what? Wait, we'll talk about it on the recap show. But anyway, the Bengals are playing another game in the span of 5 days. They may or may not be trying to break your heart. Again, Thursday Night Football, Bengals at Browns. Joe Burrow versus Baker Mayfield. Browns -6.5. What are your initial thoughts here, Breech?
Well, my initial thoughts here are that the only thing more depressing than watching the Bengals lose a disastrous game on a Sunday afternoon is watching them do it in prime time. And as we all know, during the Andy Dalton years, it was a regular happening. Primetime games are nightmares for Bengals fans. But guess what? Andy Dalton is not here anymore. We have Joe Burrow. And you know what? Joe Burrow didn't throw for 500 yards against the Chargers, but he did play pretty well, and he drove them straight down the field for a game-winning drive that didn't end up being a game winner on Sunday because of Randy Bullock's I don't even want to talk about that, but Burrow looked good. That's the important part. He showed confidence. He showed that he can play in the NFL. And you know what? There's only really one team in the NFL the Bengals can beat. It's the Cleveland Browns. They've won 8 of their past 11 against Cleveland. Cleveland's a bigger disaster than Cincinnati right now. So I don't know how the Browns are getting 6.5 points here as the favorites. I like the Bengals to cover, and I think I might end up even picking them to win this game straight up.
I would have no problem with that. I think this is it's a weird line because the Browns got stomped by the Ravens. And the Bengals, I didn't think looked good. I watched a lot of that Bengals-Chargers game, but the Chargers are a pretty good defense. And that was a game where the total was 41.5 coming into it, and I think everyone loved the under, maybe even got down to like 40.5. I don't think we expected a ton of points. I thought Joe Burrow acquitted himself pretty well given the circumstances. First game, shortened off season, tough defense with a questionable offensive line. And like a couple of breaks here or there, like a Joe Mixon fumble, if he hits A.J. Green, if A.J. Green doesn't push off, the Bengals could have scored like 28 points themselves. And so I would lean the same way as you. I don't think that the Browns are 6.5 points better than the Bengals. The fact that it's that much sort of gives me pause because I would have guessed 3.5 or 4 at the most. I think there's a lot of value here on the Bengals.
Yeah, and unlike, again, as I said, we've seen Andy Dalton. We've seen the Bengals play in primetime before, but Joe Burrow thrives when the spotlight's on him. Obviously, we saw all last season. We saw the national championship game. This guy comes through in the clutch, so I'm actually excited to be able to watch him in prime time, and so I like that factor. I think Burrow can have a big game.
By the way, if you agree with us and you like the Bengals, you should go ahead and bet it now because at William Hill, so producer extraordinaire Debo went and got the lines early on because Debo is prepared and does things ahead of time. It has already moved to +6 -115. That means that it's probably going to keep moving down would be my guess. I think people will just take the points. Now, there are some concerns, I suppose, about taking a line this early. Even for Thursday on a Monday or on a Sunday in a COVID world, because if Joe Burrow gets COVID, then the Bengals are going to be like +12 or maybe -1
because of Ryan Finley's a bad quarterback.
-1 with Ryan Finley. No, but I mean like it's more than likely going to shrink down, barring a big surprise outbreak with Cincinnati. The total there in that game, 45. Would you lean over or under if you're looking at that game, Breech?
I'm going to lean over. I feel like when these two teams play, it's total craziness. I could see both of these teams scoring in the 30s, no defense being played. So I feel like I'm feeling the over right now, but we'll see how injuries shake out and what everything looks like over the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I get down with the over too, because I think you could see the Bengals try. They're like, again, the Bengals probably should have scored 21 to 24 points bare minimum. Certainly make some more field goals. The Chargers are a very methodical team. The Browns are a little slower paced too, I think. We still haven't really know what Kevin Stefanski will do, but I would anticipate Baker likes primetime games too. Baker doesn't want to lose. Baker don't want to be 0-2 in year one of Kevin Stefanski, having lost to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So I think you'll see a concentrated effort. And let's not forget too, when we're talking about the first Thursday game of the year, these guys are probably gassed because they're not in football shape. This could be sloppy, and I think you'll probably see offense rule the day. So I would lean over Bengals +6, and I agree with you. I think you sprinkle a little bit on the money line.
We never agree on stuff. This is amazing.
I know, it's fun. +225 doesn't make for great podcasting. The Vikings, who got curb stomped by the Packers, causing Pete Prisco to peacock around the CBS offices, feathers out. Is that a good peacock? I don't know. The Vikings are at the Colts, who, I really shouldn't be making fun of you for crippling losses, Breech, because the Colts and my pal Phillip Rivers, you won't believe this, threw a fourth quarter interception with a game on the line and a chance to win. Vikings at Colts. Colts are -3 here, over under 46.5. Which direction would you head?
Yeah, about making fun of me, though, that is true. I didn't pick the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl. You picked the Colts to go to the Super Bowl, and they are already 0-1 after an ugly, ugly loss. I think I like the over here. Look, we watched the Vikings play on Sunday against the Packers, and this is a Vikings team we talked about all offseason. Our biggest talking point was the fact that they lost a bunch of defensive starters. What the heck did the Vikings think was going to happen when they were going into a game against Aaron Rodgers with down 5 starters? You didn't get to practice against anyone. There were no preseason games. So you're just throwing all those young guys out there and praying that they can succeed. And clearly they couldn't. They were in way over their head. And you know what? The Colts have more weapons than the Packers. Obviously, Phillip Rivers, not as good of a quarterback as Aaron Rodgers, but the fact the Colts have way more weapons, I think maybe that makes up for it. I like the over definitely in this because the Colts might hit it on their own.
So, yeah, look, I think the Colts were a better team. I think one of the things that we've seen from teams that are breaking in new quarterbacks, whether it be Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis, we maybe oversold the ability of these guys to come in on day one and be on the same page. T.Y. Hilton had a brutal drop down the stretch that would have resulted in the Colts getting a first down and probably could have ended up with them winning the game and instead, back-breaking interception. So I would lean towards the Colts here, but at the same time, I feel a little gun-shy. I don't know that I would mess around with anything on that total. I could see perhaps sprinkling something on this over, though, because I think it's a little bit lower based on the Colts pace and the Vikings defensive, alleged defensive prowess. But Aaron Rodgers showed us that the Vikings defense might stink. And they're on the road. There's no home field advantage. There's no fans. I'll take the over in this spot. Moving along. 46.5, by the way. Chiefs, -7 at the Chargers. The Chiefs are 7-point favorites. Over under 51. What do you think about this game, Breech?
Let me just say, when I see that the Chiefs are playing an AFC West team, my first instinct is to just take half the money in my bank account and immediately bet it on the Kansas City Chiefs. We're talking since 2015. Kansas City is 27-3 straight up against divisional opponents. They are 21-8-1 against the spread. Oh, you know what? They're 11-1 against the Chargers over the past 5 years. So it has just been absolute domination against the division and against the Chargers. They've covered in 10 straight games. I just see no reason at all to bet against the Chiefs. I like winning money. I'm going to put money on the Chiefs. This one's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch the Chargers. You can't touch the Chargers. The Chargers don't look like they're very good. I'll tell you what the move is here. Hammer the under. 51, and it's already down to 50. This is a game where we've seen The Chiefs, what did they do in week 1 against the Houston Texans? They pounded the ball with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They ran the heck out of the ball early on. Well, we saw, I thought Joe Mixon was at least effective running the football, and they don't have a very good offensive line. The Chiefs do. You can run the football against the Chargers. They have a good pass rush, but they're not that great against the run. Losing Derwin James is a huge problem. So the Chiefs are going to run the ball a ton. The Chargers want to play at a snail's pace. That's what Anthony Lynn wants to do. He wants to run few plays. He wants to eat up clock. He wants to run the ball. They're going to chew up the clock. This game is going way under 50 points. I love the under in this spot, and I think that you should get it now because it probably ends up closing something closer to 47 when it starts crossing a few key numbers.
Brinson, I am going to say one thing real quick. I agree with you in theory, but my only rule of the Patrick Mahomes era is never bet the under in a Chiefs game because I'm always afraid the Chiefs themselves could hit the over. They might score 51 points, and it doesn't even matter if the Chargers score because the Chiefs hit the over on their own. But I do agree with your assessment of how the game would likely play out, and the Chargers will try to shorten it by running.
All right, moving along. The Ravens at the Texans on Sunday, of course. Ravens, who looked great, whipping the Browns 38-6 at Houston. They are 6.5-point favorites. The total in that spot, 53.5. We saw the Chiefs run the ball really well against Houston. Can Lamar Jackson and company do the same thing, Breech?
I don't know, but someone in the NFL scheduling office must absolutely hate the Houston Texans because how do you get stuck playing Patrick Mahomes in week 1 and then Lamar Jackson in week 2? That is almost unfair. And, they're 2 MVP quarterbacks, but they have completely different playing styles. And as bad as Houston's defense was against Kansas City, I have no idea how they're going to slow down Lamar Jackson. I am leaning over, and I love the 6.5 points there. I think the Ravens win this game by double digits.
Yeah, I can't fade the Ravens at this point. They're too good. They're playing too well. I will say this. Given what we saw from the Chiefs and the Texans in the first half of last week's game, I almost wonder if it wouldn't be a bad idea to take the first half under. We saw with, those guys, and let's look and see exactly what that is. It's not out yet. Presumably it'll be like 26 or something like that, maybe 27, depending on where this line closes. And then you see if a lot more points are scored in the second half. I thought we saw a pretty big outburst of points on Sunday in terms of the second half performance. So I think I would lean towards the first half under here when we see what it is. I can't take. I'm not taking the Texans plus 7 points. I don't care where they play. Houston, the Moon, Bill O'Brien's backyard. I don't care. I'm not taking the Texans plus 7 after seeing what we saw, even though I do like the fact that they have an additional 3 or 4 days rest, having played on Thursday instead of Sunday. I think that does benefit them, but Lamar Jackson and company are playing too well right now. Lamar looks like he's taking another leap as a passer. Patriots at Seahawks. Seahawks at home without the 12s are -4, the over under 44, Breech.
Did you see what the Seahawks did on Sunday, Brinson? They let Russell Wilson in the kitchen. He was cooking everything up. It was amazing. I never thought I would see it. I don't know that the fans must have finally got into the coaching staff's head because they gave Russell all the pots and pans. They let him put the apron on, and they absolutely let Russell Wilson cook. And he was unstoppable. He's on fire, 31-35, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. And you know what? Watching the Patriots play against the Dolphins, this is not the Patriots defense from last season. I know that Miami scored 11 points, but that's because Ryan Fitzpatrick is their quarterback. I'm not sure that the Patriots are going to be able to slow down Russell Wilson. And here are a few things that I really like about the Seahawks. I know they are not going to have the fans there, so they kind of lose the crowd, the noise, and that part of home field advantage. But the Seahawks are 15-1 in September games in Pete Carroll's career. They're 14-1 in primetime games in Pete Carroll's career. And Russell Wilson is 14-2 against AFC teams. Those are all straight up. So I just don't think that the Patriots are going to be able to fly across the country and win this game. I like the Seahawks straight up. I'm still a little iffy on the spread, but I think I'm leaning Seattle.
I will take the Patriots with the points. The Patriots are still undervalued on the market right now. Cam Newton looked awesome. And Brady Quinn was on the show, and I can't wait till next Tuesday when we talk to him. And I'm like, hey, man, remember when you said they weren't going to run Cam Newton much for some weird reason on the podcast last week? You were wrong. Real wrong. They ran Cam a lot. They let Cam cook too, and I think you'll see that a lot from the Patriots as well. Cam looked very comfortable. The receiver's starting to come along a little bit. You know, he's getting on the same page. Of all the quarterbacks who really changed teams, I thought Cam looked more comfortable than anybody else, primarily because they were able to use his legs. Now, in theory, Seattle's got a better defense than what they had to face against Miami. Belichick was just out coaching Brian Flores left and right, and I think this game actually ends up going under. We have a total of 44. I know the Seahawks cranked it up. I think they'll be a little more conservative against the Patriots defense that has an outstanding secondary. I mean, the Falcons defense stinks. You can throw all day all over them. You want to get in a shootout with the Falcons. I think they'll let Russ cook, but I think they'll be a little bit more conservative in their offensive game plan, and that will lead to less scoring. Patriots under should be a thing this year with them being a power run team and a very good defense. Saints minus Monday Night Football. That's Sunday night, by the way, Patriots and Seahawks. That's a great game. Monday night, Saints at Raiders. Saints minus 5.5. The over under 50.5. The Raiders put on a scoring show in Carolina with Derek Carr. Henry Ruggs getting a lot of usage. Josh Jacobs, 3 touchdowns. And the Saints, of course, malewat the Buccaneers in New Orleans on Sunday afternoon. What do you think about the Saints being that big of a favorite on the road in week 2?
Well, let me say first that the fact that the Raiders offense put on a show totally overshadowed the fact that their defense couldn't stop the Carolina Panthers. Panthers have a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, and they looked like one of the best offenses in the NFL going up and down the field on the Raiders defense. So, I mean, if Carolina can score 30 points on the Raiders D, what are the Saints going to do? The Saints going to put up a 40-burger, maybe even a 50-burger. I would say that obviously this is the first game in the Raiders' new stadium in Las Vegas. If there was going to be a crowd there, if this was a sold-out game, I would probably lean Raiders just because the atmosphere would be so electric. You have a bunch of drunk people in Vegas cheering for the Raiders. I could see them winning in that environment. But there are not going to be fans there. I think Drew Brees is going to dice up the Raiders secondary. I think this game is going to be a shootout. I don't pick against the Saints in shootouts, so I like the over. I'm leaning Saints at the 5.5 number, and I just don't see how the Raiders can slow down the Saints offense.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're playing in Vegas, and there won't be fans, right? There are only fans in Jacksonville and in like Florida and Kansas, right? And so if there's no fans, there's probably going to be a home field advantage anyway. Raiders are testing out a new stadium. I think the over is probably the play as well. And by the way, hammer Panthers overs. I know we didn't include that one on here, but my goodness, the Panthers just do not seem to have any interest in stopping anybody. I'm just going to take a peek real quick and see what their over is for next week in their game as well, if I can find it. The Buccaneers, oh my goodness, the over against the Bucs is 48.5. Hammer time. Hey, this should be Panthers over-unders have to be 50. They can score and nobody can stop them. So hammer that over right now on the Buccaneers and the Panthers. But yeah, I agree. I think the Saints and the Raiders defense doesn't look good. Their offense does look competent. They got a lot of pieces. The Saints defense is pretty good, but I don't think they can slow down Derek Carr and the Raiders. Give me the over as well, Breech. All right, that's it for the podcast preview of week 2 early lines. Look ahead. We will see you guys in the podcast feed. Make sure and check it out. 8 podcasts a week dropping. See you soon.